And that is why we love our lean, tiny little armies that do not have very expensive units in it at all. So I just want to back up and point out how huge the food differential was. I think I was behind by about 40 food. Yeah, 112 to 155. And obviously this little crevice helps to get a lot of advantage for tearing with these tanks, but when you have just enough Templar to storm every single unit he has about 8 times, then yeah, it's, you know, little tiny areas are going to be a happy time for Protoss. Now, this is what I should have done. I should have calmly rebuilt more units and went ahead and attacked a little while later, because we're seeing all these Hellions are just able to do such absurd amounts of damage to my Zealots. And see, look at this. I'm just what guys. Oh, Zealots. And what do I have marching up here? Oh, look, it's an Archon. Oh, yeah, you see, anytime I am in some sort of crisis or some sort of panic, I just make bad decisions with my units. I just focus a little bit too much on my macro. You'll note, wow, I was chrono boosting upgrades during that battle. I mean, yeah, that's great, but, you know, that was really my game-changing opportunity. And, of course, now once I'm starting to pull back, I'm looking at the minimap. I'm pretty good at little harassment forces, you know, like this, like making sure that Archon didn't wander off and do anything stupid once he was killing guys off up here, once he did accidentally wander up there. But to be entirely frank, like, that is... Archon shouldn't have been up there in the first place, and who cares if your little cutesy harassments are good if your main army wanders off and kills itself regularly. So see, this army right here, this is what I should have waited for. Remember me looking over here going, oh god, guys, Zealots, you know, like right after I won this big battle, I should have pulled these 8 Zealots back, gotten this mix, and then pushed. But I waited a little too long and lost a few too many sets of units. So, of course, oh god, not nearly good at all. And I just want to state that for the record, what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to push up here to his front to force him back a little bit, so then this top left expansion and this top expansion are super vulnerable. Now, for instance, if you just follow me on the minimap, I could have sent units up through here. I could have sent it through this valley up to this top planetary fortress, but what that would mean is that he would be able to reinforce it. He would be able to run guys right up this alley I'm looking at. And this is a technique I called cutting in. This is a cut in, right? I want to cut in right here. That way it will split the 2 targets that are important. One of the targets is up here to the north. The other target is his main, right? If I can split the movement of his units to the place I'm going to attack, that's awesome. That is great. Really, really important concept to just cut in between the areas where he wants to join up and have some sort of connection between the spaces, and then attack one target or the other. So for instance, yeah. So for instance, if I move here and he had all his units up here or something like that, I could cut in here, you know, force some panic here, and then his main would be a little bit more vulnerable. And by the way, shrubbery is like the most annoying thing in the game. I was actually blown away at how many unit-producing structures my brother had. He had like half factories, half barracks, and I was a little bit like, ooh, man. And see, this is kind of what I want, is units to come up here. And of course, I don't have any Templar, so it's a little bit disappointing. Trying to get some more Templar in there, trying to do what I think I would want to call a surround. I think that ideally I would label this as a surround in the future. Yeah, that's looking somewhat surround-like. But then the production cycle finishes on all his factories, and I'm suddenly like, oh, wait a minute, and backing out. So, I mean, you know, not expecting him to have exactly this many unit-producing structures. Probably would have been best to head up north, but of course, the theme that I'm seeing here is that in crazy situations, I think my general decision-making in terms of base management looks pretty good. But my unit control is less than good. Yeah, and I'm macroing really hard. As hard as I possibly can. But as he's getting more and more of these Hellions in there, becoming increasingly obnoxious to deal with, I really need to start getting more Stalkers. I don't really want to. It's a little bit... but, you know, either way. Whatever. Whatever, made for an incredibly entertaining game. I'm trying to hang in here. I think there's 1,001 times where I'm just like barely holding on. And I like barely squeeze in. I just get this, oh my god, I have another chance at the game. And I was actually talking about this yesterday, as we see my brother just annihilating my bottom base. Yesterday I was saying that whenever you think you're losing and you suddenly get a lead, you get this feeling in your body just wants you to attack immediately, and you must resist that urge for as long as humanly possible. You must just play a normal game. And the symptoms of it happen in a million and one ways, and as we can see, for me, one of the many ways was that I want to attack and win the game immediately. And there's the good games. I'm starting to realize, yep, finally running broke on my gold, and that is an epic, epic finish to an epic, epic game. So basically like non-stop battling all game long. But, okay, so from a tournament perspective, as I flatten my increasingly spongy hair, that's a very interesting texture I developed for myself there. That's pretty cool. Alright, yeah, that's sweet. It's like a bill of a hat. But anyways, so from an observer perspective, you'd hear me say, oh, non-stop attacking all game long. Oh, and it sounds like it's a cool game. But a lot of those attacks, I think, were mistakes by both of us. Definitely more on my end than my brother's, which might have been one of the reasons why he won. But it really goes to show how significant... Oh, yeah, and by the way, just for the record, there's that Phoenix at the start of the game that never, ever, ever, ever moved. It really goes to show that if I had stayed a little bit more calm, and especially after I'd won some of those huge victories, if I just played back, pulled back, expanded, gotten Stalkers, gotten a good army, and then pushed, could have ended the game. Little silly, the Archon mistake, hitting C when I thought it was Chrono Boosting. Instead, I just had all my units selected. Darn. But some good old awesome stuff happened nonetheless. So, of course, let's see here. I will wait for some questions to roll in. And while that's going, I wanted to say that on YouTube, on my channel, youtube.com/day9tv, I have a Q&A up there. So every week, I will take questions if you put a comment in that video. And if it's voted up to the top, then the next week, I will answer those questions. And then you can put the comments that you want, the questions for the week after that in those comments. So go to youtube.com/day9tv. You will see the video there. Definitely post in there and have people like it, and definitely go to Reddit because there's a post on there. So if you wanted to post there as well. Baloop says, Day 9, do you think that last push he made into the back of his base was worth it? No, I really think that I just didn't quite have enough units. If I had a big army and I did that cut in and then I went for the main, I think that would have been great. You just kind of need a critical mass of units, because part of the reason that it becomes so strong is that he doesn't really have a good angle to defend his main. So, for example, if you cut in and you run into his main, and then he tries to come up from behind, that narrow ramp where the destructible rocks once laid, I can storm that a million times and just annihilate his army, and I have reinforcements coming from behind. So it ends up being a good play to get into his main. But since I didn't really have that many units, I just got myself surrounded. So, yes. Oh, and of course, people asking where I got this awesome t-shirt. TheHandsomeNerd.com, owned and operated by my brother Anartosis. So, yes. So here's a great question by Prawnster, who says, do you think more Phoenixes to lift his tanks would have been best? Excellent question, for two reasons. First of all, logically that makes sense, right? Phoenixes lift the tank, and also I already had these Phoenixes made, and I already had the Stargate up. And second of all, I don't know if Prawnster saw this, I'm hoping that he did, or Prawnstar. I did a daily about dealing with mech as Protoss, because I was having a lot of trouble against Jinro, and Phoenixes really turned out to be key. You get this huge army of Stalkers and some Zealots, and then you lift up all the tanks with the Phoenixes, and you can get a lot of momentum in the game and bust a lot of entrenched positions. So, the one thing that I would say is that it was a problem with how far behind I was, because I was behind by like 40, 30 food multiple times throughout that game, and the only reason I kept surging back is because my army was so lean. Templar are one of those momentum swingers, If you can get a lot of amazing storms off, you can win a game that you had lost. So I knew I needed a lot of Templar, and I wanted to get as many other units as I could. Or I should just say as many units as I could in general once I knew all my gas was low, which pretty much just left Zealots. The problem with doing something like, let's pretend for a moment that I got 4 or 5 Phoenixes to lift the 4 or 5 tanks that my brother had. Sure, those tanks would have been lifted up, but then I would have had fewer Zealots, and when I went into that battle with 6 or 7 Templar, that is now 2 or 3 Templar, because of all the Phoenixes I had. So what, I get 2 good storms off, his tanks are in the air, and my Zealots start to chip away at his army, and then the tanks land and just blow the shit out of everything I have. That's the problem that I have with getting Phoenixes in that case. Absolutely, if I had a better economy, if I was not 30 or 40 food behind, I would love getting Phoenixes in. I like this early